Hey everybody, Mike Miller with the Herald Times. My pal Brody Miller from the Indiana Daily Student.
How's it going?
The Brothers Miller, kicking it in State College.
Know it.
Not at all. Came here to watch an Indiana team that was 4-1 in its second road game of the year. They just got beat.
Pretty
much in every phase, everywhere. Final score, I don't even know off the top of my head, 29-7 Penn State victory here on homecoming in State College. As I mentioned a moment ago, not a whole lot to take home to Bloomington if you're Indiana. Nate Sudfeld and Jordan Howard were dressed, wearing pads. Sudfeld participated in warm-ups. Jordan Howard was essentially, I guess, a decoy to some degree. Sudfeld came out. He was doing the normal throws with the quarterbacks about an hour and a half or so before the game. Came out again, was working with the first-team offense in warm-ups. He looked a little stiff, but I mean, it looked like normal Sudfeld warm-ups.
I got the impression he was playing.
I kind of thought so too. Howard, on the other hand, did not come out till late, and frankly, I don't know about you, I didn't see him do a single warm-up of any kind. So it was pretty clear that he was not going to play. So Indiana relied on Xander Diamont and Divine Redding back there in the Hoosier backfield. This is not a game you can pin at all on one specific person or play or anything like that. It's just a total loss in virtually every sense. Maybe most concerning, is the fact that Xander Diamont now is also lost. We don't know the extent of his injury. I asked Wilson after the game if it was a concussion or if it was a shoulder deal, because I think it was back-to-back hits he took there in the third quarter. Hard hits into the ground, the second of which had him rolling just kind of flat on the ground for a minute there. And Wilson said he's not sure. It sounded like it was a bit of both. Hurt the shoulder.
Had some concussion-like symptoms.
Yeah, so a lot going on there. They're not sure. That they'll find out once they get back to Bloomington. Roughed up in a few senses today, Brody.
Yeah. I mean, I think the story that's not the story of the game is obviously Sudfeld and Howard not playing, and then how they tried to adjust to that. People were kind of complaining about the play calling and how they opened the game with 6 or 8, 9 straight passes. But Wilson said it best. You can't expect to just go in there and overpower this Penn State defense.
Mm-hmm.
They knew the front seven was going to be a problem. They weren't going to be able to, especially with that much of a pass attack, so they went out and tried to see what Diamont could do and pass the ball, and it just didn't work, and that was the story for the rest of the game. When you can't pass, Penn State was able to load the front seven and just stop the run, and that kind of limited everything from the rest of the game.
Gosh, what was it? I don't have it in front of me, but I should have jotted down this note before we shot this. Second half, IU was outgained something like 173 to 17 or to 20 something 13, I think, and 17 yards came on the final 2 throwaway plays of the half. I mean, there was nothing going there in that first half on the ground. I'll tell you what, man, the offensive line's kind of fallen off. Right? I mean, it's the last 2 weeks. It does not look pretty up front. Not seeing the same holes. Granted, these are the passing game is one thing that Indiana does not have right now, and I mean these are also two pretty tough defenses in Ohio State and Penn State. So I don't know exactly how to diagnose it right now, but it's concerning as you kind of get into the teeth of the schedule here. You look at these games: Ohio State, Penn State, Rutgers, and Michigan State coming up ahead. A little concerning that this offensive line hasn't looked the same as it has in the past, and hasn't really, I guess, to some degree, lived up to the expectations placed on them earlier.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely becoming a concern, but you said it best, that it's hard to even diagnose this game because if Sudfeld comes back next week, this isn't the IU offense. The IU offense with Xander and Danny Cameron isn't the IU offense. It's Nate Sudfeld's offense, and things are going to run completely different. Ricky Jones after the game, they're two completely different quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to even look at these last 2 games, or at least the last half of last week's game, and say, IU offense is struggling because if Nate Sudfeld's back, everything changes.
Yeah. The other thing that's kind of concerning is the fact that, this is a Big Ten leading offense, and they've made plays, but they don't have that playmaker. They don't have that dynamic guy at receiver, and really outside of Jordan Howard, they just don't have really anybody capable of making those big explosive plays. They just don't have that guy. I think that's kind of what I kind of addressed this in a story early in the week. This is why Indiana needs to really accelerate the development, I think, of guys like Leon Thornton and Nick Westbrook, because I think those guys have the ceiling to be that guy on the outside at receiver. Indiana just doesn't have that big play threat right now. They don't have that consistent guy who can really stretch the defense. And Wilson said it pretty succinctly. They just didn't stress Penn State at all. There was just no stress put on this team, on this defense, outside of maybe that one drive where Xander shot in there for 12 yards, from 12 yards out.
Yeah, I mean, and you actually read your story. Yeah, you said in your story that, Wilson talked about how he does, you're talking about Westbrook and Thornton, he wants those, he asks the position coaches to try to accelerate them, to try to get them going. And it's more just position coaches don't have the trust yet. But Wilson does want those guys, kind of like you say, to start making that progress.
Yeah.
And now moving on to the defense, though. It's a weird game. It kind of reminded me of last week's a bit in terms of, at times the defense was what was keeping this team in the game.
Yeah. There
was turnovers. There was, special teams, there was an onside kick that was recovered. The defense kept doing what they could, but there comes a point where the defense is down the field so much that, they're going to give up some points, and then the score doesn't quite show how well they kind of played at times.
It was kind of a half and half deal, I thought.
Exactly.
I agree where, especially just on defense, too, I think that, there were a lot of times when they kind of did what they had to do, but then there was the just the killer hand-to-the-face penalty from Darius Latham that took away a potential start right in the Penn State red zone. I think the game was 0-0 at that point. There was a couple, they weren't fitting holes, weren't really in the right place at different points. Still some of the same problems we've seen it over time, but by and large, I think for the most part, I think that this defense gave Indiana a shot to win on the road. That kind of goes back to those I think it was six throws to open the game for Diamond. He was kind of saying, coming into this environment, you got to put up 30, 35 points. You're not going to win here without doing that. Granted, this is a very strong Penn State defense, but you're going to have to score on the road. I think for the most part, IU's defense kind of held them there. But these little things, these little plays, these little mistakes, the penalties, just not being in the right place at the right time, that was a major issue today. From here, first thing we got to check on Monday is what's the status of Nate Sudfeld, Jordan Howard. This is just kind of me. I think Howard's probably a bit further off than Sudfeld. I think Wilson even said that Sudfeld, he's cleared, same as last week, still cleared to play, just wasn't as mobile as he needs him to be. But they need him back in a hurry. They need Jordan Howard back in a hurry. And they need to kind of fix some of these things that have been keep creeping up, like the offensive line. They got to get back that in gear, get that back in sync. Season's far from over. 2 straight losses kind of dampened some of the morale around this program right now, but I still see wins left on this schedule. It's just a matter of how quickly you can kind of get back in gear. But I guess we'll end it there, Brody. Thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the offer.
We were coming here. Your brother actually played across the street. Brody's brother. I probably mentioned this the last time. Brody's brother is a former professional baseball player with the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, former player with the State College Spikes. Brody's back in familiar territory.
Yeah, saw him pitch a few times over in that baseball stadium right behind us.
This is an Indiana football video. We're not going to talk about your brother. I'm sorry I brought it up. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. We'll catch up next week. See ya.